SpaceX still lacks a license to launch, however, so it is unclear if the Federal Aviation Administration will permit the next-generation spaceship to fly. SpaceX's static fire test of nearly all the engines in its Starship booster earlier this month was the last box to check before the vehicle's first orbital launch attempt, likely sometime in March, a company official said February 21. Speaking on a panel at the Space Mobility Conference here about rocket cargo delivery, Gary Henry, senior advisor for national security space solutions at SpaceX, said that Starship is in good shape following a static fire of 31 of its 33 engines on February 9. "We had a successful hot fire, and that was really the last box to check," Henry said at the Space Mobility Conference in Orlando held in coordination with the U.S. Space Force. "The vehicle is in good shape. The pad is in good shape." SpaceX chief executive Elon Musk tweeted just after the test that one engine was commanded off just before ignition and a second shut down early. He later said that the engines ran at 50% of their rated thrust. SpaceX has announced several Starship launch dates in the past 2 years that have been delayed due to licensing requirements from the FAA, so a March flight is far from certain. The FAA considers factors such as environmental concerns and impacts on the local community near Starship's launch site in Boca Chica, Texas. Starship is SpaceX's new spacecraft that is planned to eventually take people and cargo to the Moon and Mars, as well as to serve other missions such as lofting most of the company's newer and larger Starlink 2.0 Internet satellites to orbit. Moreover, Musk has said Starship makes Mars settlement economically feasible as the spaceship will be fully reusable. The massive spacecraft consists of a first stage called Super Heavy along with the 165-foot tall, 50 meters, upper stage spacecraft known as Starship. The orbital test flight calls for Booster 7, the Super Heavy prototype, to send an upper stage, Ship 24 variant from SpaceX's Starbase in South Texas. Booster 7 will fall into the Gulf of Mexico while Ship 24 will circle Earth once before splashing down in the Pacific Ocean, near the Hawaiian island of Kauai. Starship has done several high-altitude flights and other tests, but it hasn't flown for nearly 2 years. Its most recent excursion was with a 3-engine upper stage called SN-15, which flew 6.2 miles, 10 kilometers, high in May 2021 before landing vertically. The FAA conducted a programmatic environmental assessment, PEA, that was delayed several times by regulatory complications and public interests before being completed in June 2022. But at that time, the agency told SpaceX it must take more than 75 actions before launches can be approved. SpaceX has not released its action plan for addressing those actions. Moreover, FAA assessments do take time and this makes it uncertain how close SpaceX would be in reaching a March launch date. According to researchers, China is planning to construct a massive satellite network code-named as GW to offer internet services to users around the world, thus dethroning Starlink. China could be planning to wage a space war against billionaire Elon Musk's Starlink satellite network and break its hegemony. A team led by Associate Professor Xu Can with the People's Liberation Army's (PLA) Space Engineering University in Beijing has said that China's constellation will consist of 12,992 satellites that will be under the ownership of the newly established China Satellite Network Group Company, South China Morning Post reported. The constellation will be set up rather quickly, even before the completion of Starlink, the researchers said in a paper published in the Chinese journal Command Control and Simulation on February 15. This would ensure that our country has a place in low orbit and prevent the Starlink constellation from excessively preempting low orbit resources, they wrote. While it is unclear when the Chinese satellites will be launched, it is certain that they would rival SpaceX's plans of having 12,000 satellites orbiting the Earth by 2027. China's satellites are likely to be deployed in orbits where the Starlink constellation has not yet reached, according to researchers, who added that this would gain opportunities and advantages at other orbital altitudes, and even suppress Starlink. Furthermore, the satellites might possess features that would help them perform close-range, long-term surveillance of Starlink satellites. However, two major communication satellite networks in the orbit might attack one another, according to a study by the China National Space Administration. The Starlink satellites may use their orbital maneuverability to actively hit and destroy nearby targets in space, the researchers said.